What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. I got a couple more Week 9 preview and predictions on the slate for all you fine people today. Got a couple more ranked versus ranked matchups. Both of them today are coming out of the SEC, and I want to talk about this one first. Two teams that are really struggling right now, and two teams that just feel like they're kind of sliding in the wrong direction. This will be a big game for either one of these teams to sort of right the ship and build some momentum for the rest of the season. It's a top 21 battle in Tuscaloosa. It's the Missouri Tigers and the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we'll tell you everything you need to know about this matchup here in just a little bit. But before we do that, again, my usual spiel, just thank you so much for supporting me, for supporting the channel in literally any way you can. If it's here on YouTube, thank you so much for simply watching this video. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet and you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, please go down there, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you're up to date with everything that I talk about. We talk a lot of college football here on the channel, as well as liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you can do to interact with the channel. It all helps support what I do here on this platform. But if you want to support me elsewhere and you're interested in what else I do as a sports media student and some of the other work I do in the sports media field, go give me a follow on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. It's at Tailgate829, trying to post a little bit more about stuff I do in the world of sports media, including a volleyball game I'm calling today. We'll get a post up there shortly. So thank you so much for watching this video again. Let's dive on into this one from Tuscaloosa. Hey, how do we do preview predictions here on my channel? We're going to go through some keys to the game when each team possesses the football. So we are first going to look at the Missouri offense versus this Alabama defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll take a look at this Bama offense versus this Tiger defense. At the end of the video, I'll just kind of give you my final thoughts, tell you how I think this game is going to play out, and at the end of the day, I will give you a final prediction for who I think comes away with the win in Tuscaloosa. Make sense? All right, let's go ahead and dive on into this one. 21st ranked Tigers, 15th ranked Tide. Let's talk about it. And let's start off by talking about this Missouri offense. The main focus for Missouri coming into this year was going to be on their pass game, right? And that's been, I think, a lot of the focal point with this offense for the most part, although I'll tell you why that hasn't necessarily been the case lately. Honestly, I'm actually going to go back on that statement. There really has not been a focal point to this offense this year. It's been a very balanced attack. Brady Cook has been, fine. Definitely not what I think a lot of Tiger fans expected for the my apologies. For the most part, when you compare him to other quarterbacks around the nation, he honestly has been pretty good. 1,545 yards and 63% completion percentage, but he's only got 7 touchdowns now. Has only thrown the 1 pick. This is the Missouri offense that as a whole just doesn't really turn the football over. Only the 1 pick from Cook, and then a couple fumbles here and there for this team, but that's been about it. They've been phenomenal at holding on to the ball. But Brady Cook, you want that touchdown production to go up, and it just sort of feels like they're not getting the production that they want out of the wide receiver room, specifically out of Luther Burden. Now, 37 catches for 447 yards and 4 touchdowns does not sound like a bad stat line at all, and that's not what I'm trying to make it out to be. It's not a bad stat line, but for the pride and prejudice and just the sort of player that we know Luther Burden can be, which at his helm and at his peak is one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in all of college football. He's got a guy on his own team that is outgaining him right now. Now, it speaks to what Theo Weiss has been doing because he's been really good as well. 463 yards on 35 catches, so a little bit more yards per reception than what Luther Burden is doing. But that connection between Brady Cook and Luther Burden has to be reestablished here in this game for a couple of reasons. One, Bama's secondary is susceptible to the deep ball. So if you want to beat Bama, you have got to be able to get this pass game going. We know how much of a threat Luther Burden can be, especially down the field. Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper and some of the other players in this wide receiver core can be as well. But Luther Burden is the best wide receiver that they have within this Missouri program. That Cook to Burden, the connection has got to be reestablished here in this game. And by reestablished, I mean it's got to be established as one of the most dynamic quarterback and wide receiver pairings we have in our nation, because at its peak, that's definitely what it is. We haven't necessarily seen that over the past few games from this Missouri team. That's just been kind of sputtering, but I also got to reestablish it for later on down the line. No, they don't have a marquee game as big as Bama up left on their schedule. Their toughest game the rest of the way might very well Be Oklahoma. I don't remember if they play Vanderbilt or not, and we're going to talk about Vanderbilt later today. But I mean, overall, this offense again. I'm not trying to paint like this offense has been bad. I mean, it's been pretty solid. Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll are running right around 5 yards per carry for Noel, right around 6 yards per carry for. Or sorry, I might have gotten that backwards. Right around 5 yards per carry for Carroll, and right around 6 yards per carry for Nate Noel. Of course, both of them Sunbelt transfer running backs from last season. The run game, I think, is going to find their moments. It's going to be established here. But the thing that has got to get going for Missouri in this game, Brady Cook to Luther Burden. That has got to happen. Otherwise, I don't think Missouri comes away with the win here in this game. For the Alabama Crimson Tide, the defense has been the struggle point here of this team over the past couple of games. You take a look at what Alabama's done in their previous games. They allowed 40 points to Vanderbilt. Now, not a lot of people have been able to slow down Vanderbilt's attack so far this year. It was an offense that did what it was supposed to do, but the defense just was not that great in being able to defend South Carolina. And the defense ultimately, down the stretch, is what led them to lose that game in Neyland Stadium against their rival Tennessee this past week. This is a team that, I mean, again, we talked about it last week. That third down percentage number is very, very misleading because you had Vanderbilt go well over 50% converting on third down. South Carolina was really close to that mark, and so was Tennessee. I think the Volunteers were 6 of 14 in third down conversion last week. Now, this is a Bama team that can pass rush, it can get sacks, and it's something that Missouri's definitely susceptible to. The offensive line has not been the best so far this season, but Bama, if they get in some trouble here and Missouri ends up reestablishing that Cook to Burden mark, and Bama just can't seem to slow down this Mizzou, the offense in any way, shape, or form. Bama's also really good at being able to force turnovers. Even though this secondary is susceptible to the deep ball, it has forced quite a few interceptions so far this season. I'll get you the exact number here. It's forced 8 interceptions and 37 passes defended so far this season. Now, it's forced, again, almost as equal number of fumbles as it has picks, but even though the secondary is susceptible to that deep ball, if Brady Cook is going to be throwing the ball into traffic, the Bama secondary will make them pay. This is a Bama defense that has to find some momentum one way or another, and I think the big way that they can build some momentum here is they got to be able to get back to the Bama team that we saw earlier in the season that was exceptionally good on third downs. I think the third down battle will be crucial. Missouri's a pretty darn good third down offense, and this is the Bama third down defense that, while the overall number looks good, has not been as good these past couple of weeks. Both of these teams just looking to try to find some momentum on this side of the ball. Same thing on this side of the ball here as well, although this is definitely strength on strength. Now, Missouri, you could argue, has not really faced as high caliber of as the offenses as what Bama is going to be putting out here on display for us here in this game. I mean, you take a look at some of the teams Missouri struggled with. Boston College, sure, they're a fine offense, but they're nothing super dynamic. Only a 6-point win over the then-ranked Eagles in that matchup. It needed double overtime to get past Vandy, and it couldn't slow that offense down. To be fair, not a lot of people have been able to limit the Vandy offense anyway, so okay, you get a little bit of a free pass there, but they even allowed Auburn to get some really good offensive drives going, and Auburn not a very good offensive team, and the one time they went on the road, they played a marquee opponent who has a pretty solid offense, they got decimated. The 31-point loss in College Station against Texas A&M is what really highlights the defensive performance. They allowed over 500 yards there in that game. The third down defense was not very good. They only stopped Texas A&M on 5 of their 12 third down conversions. So I guess just to sort of change that and make it make a little bit more sense, Texas A&M went 7 for 12 on third down against this Missouri defense when those two teams last played. This is a Missouri defense that overall, I mean, you take a look at it, though, has been pretty solid. I mean, the only time that they've allowed an opponent to score over 30 points was their only loss, and it was to the Texas A&M Aggies. They're still really good at being able to force pressure. They have 15 sacks so far on the season. Overall, besides that Texas A&M game, has been a pretty solid third down defense. I think Missouri's defense is going to hold up well, and I think it'll hold up fairly fine here in this contest. But when you look at this Bama offense, it's going to be tough for Missouri to defend. But the one thing that I do think Bama's got to do a little bit of a better job here offensively, I think they got to get that run game going again. Because when you take a look at just some of the recent performances here from Bama, let's go back and look at that Tennessee game this past week. Only 75 yards on 34 carries. Guys, for all you math nerds, it's only 2.2 yards per carry. You go back and take a look at what they did against South Carolina. Again, a game they almost lost. Only 2.7 yards per carry. And you go back and you take a look at the game against Vanderbilt. They only ran the ball 21 times, and it's just because they didn't have the ball on offense that much. Did have 4 rushing touchdowns there in that one. Again, defense really couldn't keep up. But you go back and you look at that game against the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, Bama, right there, able to average 5.4 yards per carry. They had 3 rushing touchdowns in that ball game as well. If they establish the run, they're a really, really hard team to beat, because establishing the run, this is in any offense. That doesn't matter if you're pass heavy, run heavy, triple option, spread offense, doesn't matter. Establishing the run, even if you only run it 15 to 20 times per game, makes the passing game so much easier. And it also is going to give way for a dual threat quarterback like Jalen Milroe. It's going to give him a little bit more space to work and a little bit more room to operate when this defense is trying to guess between run and pass. Because if a defense can shut down the run game, they're going to sort of allocate more of their resources to the pass game. Missouri's pass defense, well, overall has been pretty good this year. I think one of the best in the country. They are susceptible to the deep ball. Again, we saw that happen against Texas A&M, but we also saw this Missouri defense let up a lot of big-time runs against the Aggies in that one as well, which is why it's imperative that the Tide get this run game going here in this one. If you are the Missouri Tigers, pass rush has been pretty solid this year, but it's been a little bit inconsistent. I think you've got to reinvigorate that pass rush and make it as strong as ever, and you got to be able to contain the legs of Jalen Milroe, especially if the Tide are going to reestablish that run game here. Well, Jalen Milroe is just another guy that you're going to have to account for in that run game. But I think Bama's got to get back to finding those explosive plays. They have not scored over 40 points since that Georgia game. In the past 2 weeks, they have failed, or I should say, their past 2 games, they have, I was going to say past 2 games, which I actually did just say. Whatever. Past 2 games, they have failed to score over 30 points. And that was just kind of a standard for Bama throughout this year. They had scored 40 points in every single contest up until that Vanderbilt game, which they were close to, but then they haven't even eclipsed 30 since that Vanderbilt game. Milroe's got to be dynamic. I think the explosive tendencies are going to have to come back for Bama, and I think they do. I'm just not a big fan of Missouri so far this season. Brady Cook has not played like he played last season. Luther Burden has not been as big of an impact player as I thought he was going to be this year. And Bama has lost 2 out of their last 3 games, but I think they're going to start to build some momentum here and get this thing figured out. I think they're a much more talented team than what the Missouri Tigers have put on display so far this season. And I think the Tide, while I don't think they're necessarily going to dominate this game from start to finish, I do think they will be in control of this game from start to finish. I do see them reestablishing that run game. I see the pass rush being hard to handle for this Missouri offensive front. Missouri will turn the football over a couple times, and Bama will walk away with a massive win, and hopefully that can build some momentum for this Tide team. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.